Okay, this is the Fragment Trebuchet by Connor Moran. The feature list for the Trebuchet includes a Trebuchet object that can move forward and back, side to side, changing its orientation. A Trebuchet that can be loaded by holding down a load button for 3 seconds. And it can only hold one projectile at a time, so once it's loaded, locked and loaded, you can't do it again until you fire it. The Trebuchet can fire the projectile in an arc that'll go further the longer you hold the charge button while it's locked and loaded. The projectile will delete itself and spawn 10 little projectiles, fragments if you will, upon reaching the peak of its arc. That'll spread out from the top. And the fragments will delete themselves upon hitting any surface, any other like collider. And they're supposed to have explosions when they hit the ground, but that's not implemented yet, so we're not going to see that today. But everything else will be there. The first feature, the Trebuchet movement, effectively goes as follows. You have a set of booleans. You have turn left, turn right, move forward, move back. They're all set on keyboard press events. So like A, D, W, S, or WASDA. And on press, it turns them to true, and on release, turns them to false. And then we have a sequence that we get off of tick. So we have a whole bunch of sequences that fire off 60 times a second, and it checks if any of the above were true, and if they are, then the movement and the turn radius will change with delta time. Turning though, turning won't change with delta time, left and right. That'll simply be tick driven. So there's a small increment, maybe like, I think it was 0.15, and that would be like 0.15 centimeters left or right every game tick while you're holding left or right. Holding A or D. And the loading, so now that you can move back and forth side to side, now you can hit the load button. So on tick, we'll check if we're loading, and we'll set that boolean when we press or release it. While we are loading, it'll decrement the loading timer. So timers float set to 3, or in other words 3 seconds. Upon hitting 0, the boolean shot ready will be set to true, and the loading variable will be set to false, so we don't keep loading after we're done loading the shot. If the key was released, so if the loading key was released before the shot was ready, then we will reset that timer back to 3 seconds, back to 3F. And we'll also set the Trebuchet's loading animation sequence equal to the % time remaining. This ensures that the animation for the Trebuchet is always going to be 3 seconds while you hold it down. So I've lined up the sequence in the background using, I think I have the equation over here. It would be we would have the play length, L, if you will, the start load animation, which I believe is at like 7.24 seconds into the animation sequence. We'll call it SLA. The current position, which is the position in the animation, the current time in the animation. Call that P. To get the total time or total load time on the animation, so how much time the animation will go for loading. That'll be L minus SLA, and the loading timer, LT, is just a float that goes from 3 to 0. And to get the % down the load, or in other words, the percentage we are into that 3 second timer. It is 1 minus LT divided by 3, and then we just have to set P, remember current position, to SLA plus PLA times the total load time. So it's just a normalized animation sequence. And then we launch. So if a shot is ready and we're not currently playing the fire animation, we can start charging the shot up with the left mouse button, and it'll increase the charge power by delta time, and we make sure that that charge doesn't go beyond 5F or 5 seconds while you're charging it. So 5 is the max. Upon releasing of the charge button, we'll start the firing animation, and a lot of logic is attached to the firing animation. Once the animation reaches 1.2 seconds, that I looked at it as it was animating, and that's actually where the beam is at the very top of the animation. So that is the fire tick, and at that point we'll instantiate a projectile object at a trebuchet scene component. So there's a scene component attached to not the controller, but the actual trebuchet object, and it's located just above the trebuchet. And the newly created projectile inherits the direction and charge power from the trebuchet, so it knows where it's supposed to go. Then you have the projectile and fragmentation. The best part, the whole point of the fragmentation in the fragment trebuchet. So the fragmenting portion of the fragment trebuchet, the projectile sets its velocity using an impulse node that's on its physics-enabled mesh, and the vector is coming from the trebuchet direction multiplied by the charge strength, also multiplied by 1,000, I think, just due to scaling. And sorry, lost my track. Yes. Then we calculate the peak of the projectile's arc using a peak equation of the initial height of the projectile plus the initial velocity, initial y velocity squared divided by 2g. And in this case, g is actually going to be 1,960 in Unreal, since everything is in centimeters, and I had to convert from 9.8 meters per second to centimeters, which was fun to find out in real time. Once the projectile reaches its peak, it enters a loop that repeats 10 times, and each time it'll instantiate a fragment that inherits the velocity vector from the projectile with a little bit of a wiggle. So it's not going to be, well, I shouldn't say little, it's a big wiggle. It won't be the exact same trajectory that the original projectile was. It'll spread out, it'll fragment. That's the whole point. Once the projectile, sorry, I already read that. The fragments will destroy themselves on contact with anything using the hit event. We had to check to cast for itself when it first created itself, because they all, of course, spawn like on top of each other, and if they collided with each other, and they would instantly get destroyed. So can't have that. And the explosion feature, which I really wanted, but I couldn't find an asset on time and implement it on time. A lot of the implementation strategy I used for this was trial and error and experimentation, and it would just, it took too long. It would have taken too long to figure out how to implement it, but in essence it would have worked as follows. We already have the hit event of each of the fragments, so telling it when to destroy itself, I would just instantiate an explosion asset, whatever that asset would have been, at the vector 3 point of the collision, and then it would just destroy itself when its animation completed. That would have been that. the research methods used, I went back into the Unreal API looking at some of the node structures. I looked at some YouTube tutorials for the animation setups and how to like get those going. I did use ChatGPT for only quick syntax references, you know, asking like what node gets the location of the player in Unreal, what node does this, what does that, etc., etc. So it's actually really useful for finding syntax faster than the API. And everything else was experimentation, trial, and error. And it was actually a lot of fun to implement. It came out really well, I think. And I'll show that to you right now. Alright. Let me start a new instance. So, this is the Trebuchet. I actually bought the Trebuchet asset. It cost like $2 on the Fab website. And if I press left, we can move left at 0.15 per tick. Move right 0.15 per tick. We can move backward. We can move forward using delta time. We can do it both at the same time if we want. Ooh, look at this. And then, if I press and hold right click, we'll start the, not the charge, the, what's called the loading animation. You can see there the charge was ready, the shot was ready, and if I right click again, it'll just say the shot is still ready, so I can't do it again until I fire. If I hold left click, it'll slowly charge up to a maximum of 5. Now we've hit 5, it won't go beyond 5. If I let go, it'll start playing the shot animation. Bam! And there's the shot, hits the top of the peak and spreads out. Oh, it's so satisfying. And then the Trebuchet resets. So I hold down, I'll do a tiny one. I'll go to like 2 seconds. And then it's slower. Pew! And it's closer. And it resets. Slower. But it will. There it goes. Trebuchet reset. Perfect. And that's what I've got. Thank you for watching.